All right. Welcome to Prepared Episode 3, the TBC weekly breakdown slash classic right now because we're not on
hmm
TBC yet. So sometimes we're going to cover some classic stuff as well until we actually get to TBC. But welcome, guys. Episode 3, I'm Snow, and you guys know Zirene over there as well. So welcome back. So today we're going to cover client leaks for the pre-patch dates, possible faction changes, race changes found inside the data that's been mined from the pre-patch data information on Wildhead. There's pre-patch discussion, so I'd like to talk about does pre-patch matter, our personal plans for pre-patch. I thought it'd be interesting to cover TBC prep as well. You know, how much does actually TBC prep even matter? People are kind of going crazy for TBC prep right now. I think almost every YouTube channel I see is doing TBC prep stuff.
hmm
So I think that's an interesting thing to discuss. How much does it even matter? Does pre-bis matter? Gold inflation? And we're going to have Zirene break down bits and pieces of the Noobs speedrun. So Noobs set a new world record speedrun for next Ramus. So we're not gonna do. It's not gonna be like a full entire speedrun breakdown. It's just got like the Cliff Notes version, and then we're gonna discuss about a little bit of speedrun drama, a little bit of speedrun news, whether there should be rules. So for those that don't know, Progress stopped logging and streaming speedruns completely until they have strategies figured out for that. But I'll talk about that later. So there's a whole speedrun segment we're gonna do today. And then if we have time, we'll fit in some other stuff like gold RMT prices are going nuts right now. In-game mats are dropping like crazy for the prices of those. While content creators are being told that they shouldn't put any endless or any private server footage on YouTube if they expect to get a beta key at all,
hmm
among other things. So yeah, how you been, Zirene?
I've been good, man. It's been a good week. I think last time we talked, it was last Wednesday, or
Yeah,
was
it
it last
was. It
Thursday?
was Wednesday. It was
Um,
Wednesday.
yeah, so it was before the Raidmasters tournament.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
congrats, by
before
the
the
way.
Raidmasters tournament.
Congrats. You are in number one right now in Raidmasters.
We currently number one. We just keep beating our old time. Ever since I joined Rain, like apparently we haven't had like a bad DMF day, which has been really really good for us. That they tell me like nightmare stories about like 3 months ago, but um I'm very big in like strategy and like refinement and things like that. So I'm glad that everything's gone off without a hitch, that we keep improving our time. We're down to like 52 something, 52 like 46 I think is what it was, which is like a minute and 10
Yeah,
seconds behind
yeah,
progress.
that's a solid
uh
time. That's like a super. For those that
yeah
don't know, that's a super solid time. That's like not far behind world pace, like number one world
yeah
pace.
yeah we're behind progress by like a minute and 10 seconds, and we're behind noobs by 2 minutes. um and there's a lot of things that we can just refine, and also like not to play like the whole lightweight thing again with our own weight class, but like the US for some reason in World of Warcraft has just always been seen as having like a worse player base,
Yeah,
and the people who like want to play with good players go play on EU.
yeah,
I mean, Tetsu's a great example,
yeah. I
right?
mean, yeah, that's in the US.
He,
Yeah,
he's a North American player who plays in EU because the players are better there, right?
yeah.
So us being like a number one NA guild is actually really big, and us being able to not have like times that are super far behind the big boys is really big for us as like a community of North American gamers in World of Warcraft. So we're really happy about that. Hopefully our time sticks. We're kind of scared of Noda right now because their run was really good and then they messed up. So I don't like to take W's where it's like, oh, we rely on somebody else messing up. I want everybody to play their best and then beat people while they're at their best. So I hope Noda comes in and puts up a really good time. Half of me hopes that they beat us so that we have to do even better. Um, but I think Rise is done. So like they're not going to be able to beat our time. I don't think they're competing this week. They only put up one time and then they messed up this
Next
week.
one's on Sunday, right? For all the next runs.
Um, I don't know if they're doing multiple days or anything like that. I don't know if they're doing Saturday, Sunday. The Raidmasters tournament has had very little visibility, at least to me, on like what days people are going.
Yeah,
I think it's because they don't want them to get griefed, but there's also like only X amount of time slots. Like we're a guild who normally raids on Saturday, Sunday, and we're forced to raid on a Thursday. That wasn't like our real roster, but we still put up like a really good time. We were missing like a few, like it was only like 2-3 warriors or something like that were like our A team. But other than that, we were I guess we were still pretty close to our A team. Like our core was there. So yeah, But all in all, it's been a really good week. We haven't had to PTR too much, so we've been happy with our time. But like in the next few days, we'll get back to it and back to grinding. But yeah, how about you? How have you been? Yeah, how have you
Just
been?
busy, man. Just busy. I was gonna
Mhm.
watch the new speedrun actually, but because you said there was some interesting stuff, I've been holding off, waiting and seeing how you break it
Mhm.
down later.
Yeah, there's a lot of really small things in there that like you'll miss if you just skim the VOD. Like my GM skimmed the VOD and he's like they didn't do anything special. And then when I watched it, I was like, holy shit. Like they're doing a lot of really small things that I think it's reaching the point where before when they did like the big A-bomb pulls and like the shield walling warriors and stuff at the very first pull they did, I was like, okay, that's like doable, but it's really risky. And I don't know if it's worth like the extra 9 seconds you save.
Yeah.
Now they're doing things, and I'm like, I don't think we could do that on my server, kind of thing. So I'll explain a little bit later what I mean, but they're doing things where I'm like, that wouldn't fly on Fairlina, and like that probably wouldn't fly on Firemaw or Gehennis, right? So I'll explain a little bit later what I mean.
Okay, cool. So, I mean, let's start off with a good TBC topic then, since this is the TBC podcast
Mm-hmm.
after all. Um, let's talk about the pre-patch leak. So, I got it up here. I'll pull it up for everyone to see. So yeah, if people didn't see this, there were some leaks in the classic PTR patches and things that get put on PTR. Some data leaks from the mining and such that say that there's a transition date of May 18th for the TBC pre-patch date,
Yeah.
but we don't know. Obviously, guys, this is take this with a grain of salt because this could be just filler dates. They could have just uploaded it with just that date. There's no confirmation this is obviously the date, but it's a date that seems would make sense in some
Mm-hmm.
ways. If they put this out on May 18th, you could have a month or something of pre-patch and then TBC after that, which would make sense. It would be in a rough timeline, that June-July timeline that people are hoping. I say
Yeah.
expecting, but kind of hoping, because if we go longer than that, that's gonna suck to do
And
next to that
May
long.
May 18th sounds like a good time to me as well. The thing that's interesting is this is PTR, so I don't know if that's going to hit PTR and they're going to have like the talents there, and the pre-patch on PTR first. I don't really feel like Blizzard does that with Classic at all, though. I don't feel like they do things on PTR and then release it later. They kind of just release it, and then PTR is like some weird like training ground that speedrunners use. Otherwise, like people don't use PTR at all. Like,
Yeah.
it's really strange. Also, a small thing on this happened the day of Raidmasters. So we were trying to practice the whole day before, but we couldn't copy characters because the PTR was down, and we were mad, dude. We were like, we need to warm up. Like this is going to be real scary. And then when we finally got in, it had the whole thing where it was like it said Burning Crusade Classic in the top right when you logged into your character, and then on the left, there was this thing that was like, do you want to continue in like Burning Crusade or do you want to like have your classic character be static? So when we logged in, we were surprised at that, but there were no like changes to talents or anything. So, which we were happy about because we were like, we want to practice PTR speedrun right now. If the talents change on us, like, oh God. So that was an interesting day. A lot of people, like my GM is European, and he was up for like 18 hours just trying to make sure that like when the PTR was up, he could just tell everybody get on so that they could copy characters over. Oh man, I think he handed it off to somebody at one point and then like logged off. But oh man, it was a very interesting day. Stressful.
But yeah, yeah, the PTR date is interesting because there's a bunch of other mine data. This is it's interesting, but
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing really there to discuss. It's just it is what it is. May 18th. But inside the leaked information, they don't have it in the Wildhead, this article in particular. But people did find strings that said that character faction changes and race changes were found in the data. So that is being added into the code that's being put out there. But the question is whether that's actually even going to be enabled, because they could just be putting that in there for a future timeline, right? But honestly, it wouldn't be that crazy for them to enable it. But that's a whole discussion that I like to have. Is Do you think faction changes and race changes should even be a thing this early in Classic?
I am very torn on this. This is a topic that like I have a lot to say on because as somebody who re-rolled a paladin fresh in the middle of TBC because I didn't like my racial as a human after season 1 and 2,
Yeah.
I re-rolled completely to horde and like got number 1 in season 3 and 4 because of my racial. Because humans really don't have a racial in PvP. Like perception is very, very lackluster. Like everybody's like, oh, it's underrated. I'm like, a lot of rogues that are good just gonna avoid you. Like it's not that strong. And especially with things like Shadow Step and all that, like you're gonna get sapped anyway if they want to sap you. Um, yeah, it's really big in terms of the racials. Horde is obviously favored in PvP and PvE over Alliance. There's very few things where it's like an Alliance character is like better. It's like sure, the Alliance human warrior is a little bit better in TPS because of expertise. The Ret Paladin is a little bit better because of expertise. Like, okay, great. But the racials that matter, like the Orc racial, the Tauren racial for HP, which matters a lot in TBC for tanking, is like the best racial you could get. Plus, you get Kings finally, so those things stack. There's a lot of things that favor Horde damage wise and survivability wise in PvE. And then PvP, it's a no brainer.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where I want it, but I don't know if I actually want it because it would be a service that I use, but I don't know if it's healthy for the game because I think my raid team, I don't think any of us are really going to like re-roll Horde. Like we'll have Horde characters like here and there. Some of them already do, but we're not like full on re-rolling like, oh, Rain is going Horde.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure if they introduce race changes, Rain would go Horde. I'm almost positive they would just go Horde.
Yeah.
So if Blizzard wants money, they do it.
Yeah. So that was the thing I was thinking about when I looked at this, because if they introduced race changes or faction changes, you know that a lot of these alliance guilds are gonna just reroll Horde, like straight up. It would. I feel like it would kill the entire alliance population. It would just decimate that because all the hardcore guilds would just be like, well, I'm just gonna roll Horde now. Because I mean, hardcore guilds have already talked about it. There's been rumors of salad bakers potentially re-rolling Horde, thinking about it. Although I don't know if they do it because it's a lot of.
Some of them already have Horde characters on Scarab, I believe.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and it's the same in Progress. We have a bunch of people with Horde characters, but to get an entire guild to re-roll and to leave all the alliance tunes behind and do everything from scratch, it's a hard sell for some people. But if they put in the change, just where you just have a paid change, you know that all these guilds are just gonna pay it and just instant reroll.
Oh yeah, because like Rain was actually an alliance guild on Scarum originally and couldn't secure world bosses or anything like that, so they transferred off. That's why they're on Fairlina, is because they were a guild that was competing on Scarum on alliance side. If anybody knows anything about Scarum, it's like the easiest server to play Horde on because you're never gonna get purged. Like it's so easy to buff on Scarum. It's actually ridiculous. Like the population is so imbalanced in favor of Horde. So they transferred off of it because they didn't stand a snowball's chance in hell of getting any world bosses or anything. So a whole guild transferring servers and paying money to do that. And then a whole guild transferring factions, pretty easy, pretty easy for them to do. And I think 100% Rain would do it. Like maybe there's a 1% chance they don't. I think my GM was like, wait, what does my Winter Saber mount turn into? The stupid raptor? I'm not changing factions. Like he's like, I ground out this cat for my gnome. I am not changing factions.
That is the longest grind in the game. That's the
only thing I've heard is he's just like, no, I don't want the stupid raptor. You guys can go. He's a rogue anyway. He'll probably transfer something else over besides rogue, something a little more useful.
Yeah.
Oh my god. But yeah, I think it would absolutely gut the alliance population. But that being said, like the alliance versus Horde difference right now, it is larger than it is in TBC, racial wise in PvE. So if you're a PvE player, being Horde is very min-maxy, but it's not even close to the way it is right now. Like you look at like speedrunning times, it's like there's very few Horde guilds that are under 1 hour. Even though they have like good players, like it's not that they don't have good players, it's that the faction or the race is just much weaker in PvE. It's much harder to execute on. The margin of error is so small that you're allowed to get away with. And then when you play Alliance, it's like, oh, I have all these tools like extra HP with Kings. I have Salve. Like it doesn't matter how much you mess up. It's very hard to die. And so that difference where you see now where it's like 6 minutes, 7 minutes faster than like the Horde guilds, or 8 minutes faster than the Horde guilds, that's not going to happen on TBC. If people speed run, it's not going to make much of a difference, right? The ratios are very, very, very small. In terms of DPS increase and survivability, they are very small, but they do exist. If you're a PvP player, then absolutely going Horde is going to be something that you want to do. I think there's very few PvP 3v3 setups that Alliance have a better setup than Horde do. I actually struggled to think of one. I think the only one I can think of is Rogue Mage Priest, where it's Gnome, Dwarf, Human instead of Undead, Undead, Undead. That's the only 3 setup I can think of that's better on Alliance side slightly. But other than that, I struggle to think of one, because Druids are clearly better on Horde side with War Stomp as opposed to just having Shadow Meld. There's a lot there. I'm basically saying that PvP, if you're a PvP player, you're going to want to go Horde. If you're Alliance and you're a PvE player, you may stay Alliance if people in your guild don't care about PvP. But that's where I'm at right now.
If it was up to you, like if Blizzard just said, Zirene, we trust you, this is the switch you can press to turn on faction changes, would you press the button?
I don't know, dude. Because I don't know, because like there's people in my guild who are already re-rolling Horde, and I think they're gonna like play those tunes more in TBC anyway, and so we would just lose them from the guild. And so I'm like, if I press the button, I have a higher chance of my guild staying together and the same people playing with each other, because it wouldn't cause a division, but it's gonna make the population worse.
But it's going to destroy Alliance population if it ever gets put in.
But in TBC, I mean, honestly, with the introduction of Blood Elves, like the factions became imbalanced in favor of Horde and have never recovered ever. Like even when humans got crazy racial and wrath, like it never recovered. And we've talked about this before, so I won't repeat myself on it. But I really don't know. If I was in charge of it, I would honestly do something like, I would do something like you get one faction change per account or something. I don't know, like a one-time thing instead of a boost. Because I don't know. God, if I was in charge of the money at Blizzard, I would do it. If I was in charge of the money, I would do it, because that's a real fast grab. Like, holy moly.
I mean, it brings about the whole point. I don't know if you saw the Mad Season video. Did you see the 1 hour Mad Season boosting video?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Some people were talking about it, and I didn't really see
I thought we'd actually cover it maybe next podcast. People have been asking us to cover it, but it's just that it only came out a couple of days ago, or whatever it is, and I didn't think that both of us had seen the entire thing and really digested the whole video. It'd be an interesting video to cover, because he goes on for an hour, pretty much covers almost every point as far as the why he doesn't want boost and such put into the game. And both of us are kind of pro boost, so I thought it'd be an interesting episode to kind of cover the other side of things and go point for point and see where it stands.
Okay.
But he does bring up the point where the introduction of these little cash items and cash shop things are not something that feels like the classic spirit. And whether it leads down this path, it's the whole slippery slope thing, where does it lead down the path where more and more cash shop things get put in and people get more comfortable? Maybe it starts off as a faction change and a race change, then it goes into other cash shop items down the line. That's kind of like the danger that people are scared of if they enabled it. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I think about that one.
I don't really buy that, because you can already buy server transfers. So there's already cash shop things. Yeah.
But
And like people originally were against server transfers, because they were like, this guy could ninja an item from an instance that's really big and then just hop over. And it did happen, right? There were GMs who were like, screw this game, I'm ninjaing Goa as the main tank, and then I'm transferring servers. Bye-bye. Right? Like, sure, it happens. It's stuff that happened back in the day. Just because stuff happened back in the day, like, the classic spirit. I mean, just be real with you guys. The classic spirit is not the vanilla spirit. It is completely different. The classic spirit is the min-max spirit. We're much older now. We're like 15 years older than we were when we played this game in the past. Some of us may have not played it then, but we're min-maxers. We're gamers who want to actually play this game to be good at it. And this is something that I feel like most players who play WoW and continue to play WoW, at least in this phase, enjoy about it. So I don't feel like the classic spirit is the vanilla spirit. The vanilla spirit is like all that discovery and everything. The classic spirit is this is getting to play this shit over again and be better at it and have a bigger brain because we're older and we get to play these games again. So for me, that's not the classic spirit. The classic spirit isn't anything to do with that. Classic spirit for me is min-maxing. I would roll a Horde Paladin regardless of if I'm able to pay for it or not. So it's like, is the faction change really a thing that is bad for the game, or is it something that I would just do anyway and they're just giving me a way to do it? So
I mean, I feel it comes into this this entire bigger discussion on what do people actually want out of Classic? Do they want that original, the true vanilla experience of everything as they remember it, as it was the first time around?
You can't get that because the game is an MMORPG and the people are different now, right? Like the whole thing with original Classic is a lot of it is, or vanilla is the people that you met and the connections you made with people. And now it's like people are just different, right? People have way more min-maxy mentalities. Like you're going to meet different people nowadays. So it's strange because like one of the things that people tell me they love about World of Warcraft in general, and especially Classic, was the drama, right? The server drama. Stuff you can't get in like almost any other MMORPG is the server drama. And that's because of the people. And I think the people are different now, so it's much harder to get that vanilla feel, right?
Yeah.
But that's my mentality. I'm sorry for interrupting you. I'm just very passionate about this, where I think having played original 15 years ago, like it is a very, very different game, man. You didn't warrior stack back then. The warriors were a joke. So
well, I mean, I feel like what brings about so much of this, where people are so passionate on both sides of the coin. People, a good point that Mad Season did talk about that's kind of just a general theme is that people hear that someone doesn't agree with their side of the argument in Classic WoW, and immediately they already starting to type that comment. I don't know what you're thinking. I've actually gone to the YouTube. I've gone to the YouTube comments before, and maybe I was like uploading a video or something. And I see that little notification pop up when someone like comments on the video, and I click on it, and it's this long just essay that someone has written in the comments of one of the YouTube videos, how they think both you and me are wrong on everything to do with World of Warcraft boosting tokens, everything. And then when I'm finishing editing that video and I go back and okay, maybe I should respond to this when I click on it, and it's gone. Because people have this like knee-jerk reaction. I feel like a lot of them they leave the comment and then they go back and like, oh, okay, maybe that was a little bit much. I'm gonna go back there, maybe delete that or edit that, because people really quickly jump on the bandwagon for when you're not agreeing with their side of how they feel Classic should be played out. And it's this whole question of what do people even want out of Classic, and which crowd should they even cater to for Classic, right? Do they cater to the super sweaties? Do they cater to in between? Do they cater to people? It extends beyond into boosts and tokens and all of that. Where do they cater the demographic to? Do they do it for the original WoW crowd that wants the nostalgia click and no changes and all of that? It's something I've thought about a lot, and I don't know what the answer to that is, because it brings about this whole other question: is what is even Classic?
God, we're getting real philosophical here.
Yeah, what is Classic?
I gamed before I am.
Because when people say Classic, when are we talking about? Are we talking about just until Wrath? Are we talking about, is it going to extend into Kata? Like I don't know. What are we even talking about? Because the longevity of the game changes a lot based on the decisions you make now, and those decisions really depend on whether you want the game to go on beyond Wrath as it is, or how you want the game to extend beyond things. So yeah, I'm not sure what the answer to that is. It's one of those things where I don't know. Like, do we want? Are you gonna play Classic beyond Wrath if it goes beyond Wrath?
No, I quit in Wrath because I was a big arena player and I was less focused on PVE back then. Even though I wasn't like a top PVE guild, the PVE in Wrath didn't really do it for me beyond the first raid. Was it Uldir? Is that what it's called?
I
Ulduar?
think so. I don't know. I was young
I
and
don't
I
remember.
barely remember bits. Yeah.
God, it's a real Ulduar. Yeah, it's a really good instance. And then there's this big gap of like crap and then ICC. And I had a problem with Death Knights personally. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if I was just really purist or something, but I just did not like Death Knights. I thought they were way too powerful. This whole like introduction of a new class just kind of it broke the PvP balance for me. And that I just didn't want to play anymore, especially because of like I thought Death Grip was really broken. Like it can be used as an interrupt.
Because it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like it was the first ability that like forcefully moves another player the way you want them to move, and I was just like, okay, this is really really powerful. So I just had problems with Death Knights and made me not want to play the game, you know. So that was kind of my end of it. Even though I played a Death Knight for a tiny bit because I wanted to feel like what they could do, or I wanted to know what they could do, and it just felt like everything was kind of handed to them. So, but I get it. You're trying to get people to play a new class. Obviously, it has to be good. It's the same thing that happened with like the Riot Balance team. Actually, just for like a small aside. If people don't know, like my original, I guess, gaming career started in League of Legends, and working at Riot Games. There's a big thing with designing champions, and if a new character comes out and is overpowered, people will learn its pattern and invest time into it and feel like it's rewarding because you're going to be bad at it. Let's say you're like 30% of the maximum skill cap when you're first playing the champion, but you're still going to win games. That means the champion's probably broken and has like a 60% win rate when you master it, which is far beyond broken. But the reason that they make them overtuned is so you'll learn the pattern, you'll invest in it, and then when they nerf it, you stick with the champion because you learn the pattern. But if a champion releases weak, you're going to play it a little bit, be like, I don't want to play this. This isn't rewarding. And then you drop it forever. Champions that release weak never have their win rates or play rates recover from that. So
Huh.
champions that release underpowered actually get played a tiny bit and then never get touched again. But if they're overpowered and then they get nerfed down to the same level as somebody who would have released it, weak, people stick with the champion because they know the pattern and they create like a bond with it. It's really interesting. It's actually fascinating. So it is in a company's best interest when they introduce something new to make it too strong and then nerf it later. So I get it. I get it.
That's
I
interesting.
really do.
Yeah, that's
Fuck
super
Death
interesting.
Knights.
But yeah, that's. But well, I remember when they were introducing Death Knights and everyone was saying, "Oh, this is going to be overpowered," and then there were like I think there were community posts and people saying, "Don't worry, guys, it's not going to be that bad. They're going to be okay." And it turns out, no, they're just really, really overpowered.
Yeah, and then they didn't know what they wanted to do. I mean, Frost was the tanking spec, and then Blood was like the DPS spec because it had armor penetration, and then like the rune blade that would copy your damage for 50% more. And then they made like then they made Blood the tanking spec, and then they made Frost like the dual wield damage spec. So it was like, but they could both do everything. So it was like, it was really strong. And they didn't even know what they wanted to do. They were like, is Frost or Blood the tanking spec? I guess they're both tanking and DPS specs. Oh,
Yeah,
man.
let's just make them do everything.
What a
Yeah,
fun
it's all
time.
good. Yeah.
What a fun time. Holy
Yeah,
moly.
but I mean, to bring
Yeah.
it back to the whole TBC thing and Classic, does that mean
For
they should tune the game for a game that's potentially kind of done after Wrath? Or how do you think they should actually tune it? Because like it kind of is the big question is do they make changes to try to make Classic last beyond Wrath? Or do they just
No.
say like, no, everyone's just gonna quit after Wrath, so we only tune the game for up to Wrath, basically. And we don't mind if people are done after.
In my mind, what's going to happen, and we'll come back years from now and clip this and see what happens. Just so people can say I was right or I was absolutely dead wrong. It's either going to stop with TBC or it's going to go Wrath and then stop. Now, personally, I stopped after TBC, but I think what they'll do is they'll go to Wrath because if you look at like the sales and like how much people played WoW over time, Wrath was the peak. I actually think TBC was the peak, and then Wrath kind of rode the hype of TBC a little bit into Wrath, and then it started to teeter a little bit towards the end, and then Kata just threw it into the goddamn grave. So that's how I feel, because what they tried to do is they tried to go, Classic was so good, let's have you go back to the original zones, but they're all fucked up now. That is Kata. And it's like nobody wanted this. Nobody really wanted this. And Kata also is the first time they deviate from the things that people loved in Warcraft 3, which was like Illidan and Arthas, right? Illidan, Arthas, and then they're like, here's this dragon that you don't know shit about, but you probably, if you sat there and actually listened, maybe there's like a little mention one time about it. And then people really didn't like care too much about that. People like antagonists that they recognize, or people that like, they're like, oh shit, I know this guy from my childhood or playing Warcraft 3. And that was the cool thing about Illidan and Arthas. So I think they'll go Wrath and then they'll stop, because I think that's where the money would stop for them. I think it's not worth it to do it past that point. And people kind of already separate the eras of World of Warcraft into the original good stuff, which was original TBC Wrath. And then after that, they're like, there's all this garbage in the middle with like maybe a good thing here or there in like Warlords or Legion, like maybe a good thing here or there. And then they're like, then there's this new era that really sucks called BFA. And now they're finally getting it right again with Shadowlands, where it's like, this is where maybe it starts being good again. So I think that they'll stop. I think they'll stop at Wrath.
I feel like what they're going to do...
I'm hard on that. I think they will definitely stop after Wrath.
I feel like what they're going to do is, again, because they've pretty much shown that they're just kind of copying the EverQuest model at this point with the servers and the names and everything. I think they'll do what they did with the classic EverQuest servers, which is they just let the server kind of continue on. They keep unlocking content, but they expect the death of the server after Wrath, or the huge decline after Wrath, and they just start a fresh server. And then everyone that wants to relive their classic experience again goes back and, okay guys, it's time to start from the scratch again. We're all gonna swap over to this new server now, and the original server, like if you're on Whitemane or Felina, that kind of dies. And then everyone swaps to whatever the new server is, and you just relive classic over and over and over again. At least that's what they did with EverQuest, because they haven't found a way to make people want to play beyond the most popular expansions. It's just people just always quit after a certain point in the game.
6-year cycle of playing vanilla TBC Wrath over and over again. I think my future's fucked, dude. Shit. I think they got me. God damn. Because people right now, like I talked to some of my guildies, and we're trying to find the guy. Like it's funny because we're like, who's the guy who's not going to come to TBC? Who is it? It's like, who's actually going to continue to play Classic? Is it you? Like, no, we haven't found anybody who's going to go, yeah, I'm going to play Classic. You know, I'm not going to play TBC. We haven't found a single person who's going to do that in our guild. And that's like the thing for me is I'm like, why are they doing even fresh Classic right now? I guess because kind of people ask for it, but I haven't found the people who want to do that. And then I'm asking people like, when would you want to play Classic again? Because you wanted to play it like 15 years later. And they're like, I'll probably play it in a few years, you know, because these are private server guys. They would actually like play private servers all the way to next. Then they'd quit for like 2 years, and then they'd come back again and do the exact same thing over again. So there are people who will do that. It just takes them a few years to kind of want to play again.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. So I think the cycle is actually probably a smart idea of going all the way to Wrath and then starting over again.
I mean, I think that's literally why they hired Holly Longdale, because she's proven, if nothing else, that she can get people to keep coming back and spending their money again and again and again to relive that classic experience over and over in EverQuest, at least. So
did they just say something nice in the chat? I'm willing to keep you with you. Okay, Thade. You know what? That wasn't grammatically correct, but I think it's sweet. Thade is our main tank in Rain. So he's like kind of my mentor. Is what I'll call him, to be nice to him, because he was just nice to me, and he's very, very rarely nice to me. So this is a special occasion.
He's a tank. You can't be nice. You have to yell at people.
He does. He's the kind of tank where he doesn't want to yell, and if he's like trying to say something, somebody talks over him, he's like, "I'm done," and then he's just like, he'll leave, and then people are like, "Shit, the tank left." Oh shit, and then everybody has to be on their best behavior. So he's scarred everybody to like not talk over him, or else they lose their tank.
You know, the best is when they're also the raid lead. I talked to Deep, who's the GM of Virility, who's the kind of like the number one Whitemane Horde guild, even though our guilds are not like on the same standard as like Progress and such. But I talked to him because he's also main tank and the raid lead, and He's got that super chill kind of vibe, but every now and then, like the tank inside him leaks out, and when the raid really messes up, he goes and takes like 2-minute rage breaks. He'll literally just say, "Okay, guys, I need 2 minutes," and he'll just walk away and rage somewhere else, and then come back.
You know, Thade has a secret channel in our Discord called Thade's Tanking Corner. And I didn't realize it until now that it's probably where he takes his timeouts. When he's really upset, he goes to the corner. He goes to the tanking corner. Oh my god. And only tanks can see that channel. So if you ever want to summon him, you sit in the channel and then he'll be like, "Who's in my channel?" Anyway, but yeah, them hiring Holly Longdale is actually like you said, a really smart move for the longevity of their game. Because there's so many MMOs that their servers are still up and there's like 10 players,
Yeah.
and it's like obviously not worth it. Like these people are paying for a subscription, and it's just like, well, the people have to like monitor the forums, like the price of these types of things, the servers, all that. Like you're not breaking even here at all, Mr. Company. Like maybe you were one day, maybe you're spending those dollars like hoping something happens, but the people who keep like MMORPG servers, their servers up, really interesting to me because they're like dead, right? The servers are dead. There's nothing happening with them. I mean, it's the thing that happened with like Diablo 2, dude. I went back to play Diablo 2 Lord of Destruction like 5 years ago, and I was like, do people still play this? Like there's a lot of people still playing Diablo 2 is really crazy to me. But they kept those servers up the entire time. I don't know if operation costs are like really low for that at this point in time, but for something like WoW, that game just kept getting expansion after expansion. This is the first time they're going to have something that like is going to have to end at some point, right? Or they're just going to have to leave it in the current state it's in. But I think recycling is probably what they'll end up doing. Like you're saying, I think they'll probably keep recycling.
I mean, the question is then how long does it keep going on? I feel like there has to be an end date, but then I look at EverQuest and people are still playing that game.
I mean,
from 1999, people are still playing it.
15 years,
Yeah.
And people are still playing like World of Warcraft, right?
Yeah,
like classic WoW.
Yeah. So I mean, I feel it's interesting.
It's the game that, in my mind, got MMORPGs right, and that's why I'll play. Why I'll play it, because WoW for me is the genre-defining game for MMORPGs. It is the game. I have played so many: Final Fantasy 11, 14, like Warhammer: Age of Reckoning. I played Terra. Oh God, I played a lot of MMORPGs, and nothing hits that spot like World of Warcraft does.
I mean, WoW was the first one to get it kind of right in most places.
Specifically,
it's the first one to get things right.
And Vanilla, specifically for me as well, are the ones who got it right. When I play WoW nowadays, like Shadowlands, it doesn't quite hit that like that mark for me for some reason. There's something about it where it's like it's less community focused and it's more like, you know, I can pug everything kind of thing, which, you know, that appeals to the casual fan. But I think WoW is doing it over again. And I think, like the question you had earlier, who they should appeal to, I think they should appeal to their hardcore gamer. Like we talked about this before with Star Trek versus Star Wars. I think they should be appealing to their hardcore gamer, 100%. I think those are the people who are going to stick with their game. Those aren't the people who are going to quit and people who are going to keep paying for subs. They're people who will pay for server transfers. They're the people who will pay for, you know, the faction changes. Those are the people they should be appealing to. So I think everything that they can do for those guys, and I think they are listening to them now, right? They're doing it with like, you know, some changes here. Bosses are harder, those types of things. I think they should be appealing to them, and I think that's what they're going to start doing. And they're going to realize that the new people come and the new people go, but the hardcore people are going to stay for much longer.
I mean, the interesting thing is there was a point that Mad Season did bring up, which he likes to pull up the graph. So there's that graph of the sub numbers of WoW up until Wrath, and then after at some point in Wrath, it was just this decline. It hit, and WoW started dying. But the question is that in his point of view, he put a lot of the credit onto what made WoW great was like this classic mentality of like how they built the game around this kind of like hardcore balance of things and all the sweaty things that make WoW classic. But yeah. I'm not actually even sure if that's why WoW was successful. I almost feel like WoW was successful because it was the first really big MMO to do most things smoothly. And they didn't have competition at that time. I like who was the competition before? EverQuest? And that was
Dude,
it.
I will tell you, having played other MMORPGs, for some reason, the movement in WoW, just the way you move, feels really good. Like even though it doesn't make sense, like you ever think like how is my character able to jump out of water while swimming? Like that's physically not possible. You can't jump out of water like that. Um, how can my character like spin around in the air when they're jumping? The character movement doesn't make sense, but I've played a lot of other MMORPGs that don't favor the player in their movement. Like there's things where like you can't jump out of water, you have to like swim all the way around. There's things like other players have collision and like hitboxes. So if two people are standing in front and you want to walk through them, you can't walk through them. It doesn't favor the person playing. Whereas WoW, like having played a rogue back in the day that wanted to backstab, it heavily favors the player's movement and whoever is controlling it, right? And that's the thing that I love about WoW is the freedom of movement feels really damn good compared to other MMORPGs, and it's so old in comparison. And that's the thing that's crazy to me is they broke realism for the favoring the player. Because I played MMORPGs where there's turn speed, right? There's things where like if you try to change direction and you're running, your character like has to do this animation where they like stop and then go the other way. Here it's just like, oh, you flipped, right? And so the freedom of movement and being able to do what you want in the game is actually really big in WoW for me. Personally, like other games turn me off really hardcore when it comes to those types of things. So for me, it's just the smoothness, like you're saying, like it plays like butter.
Yeah,
It really
like,
does.
for me, it was the first. People want to. I feel like there's almost like this nostalgia kick when people look back at original WoW and they think this is why the game was great. This is why the game's amazing and such. But a lot of things is just that they just got enough stuff right and there was no competition. And before that, people didn't even know what MMOs were before WoW. A lot of people. I'm one of the few that were actually playing MMOs before that. But I know I'm in this very very niche crew. Before that, no one in my school knew what MMORPGs were until my friend Zach and his brother got banned from playing WoW because their mom caught them playing too much in high school, and that's when everyone started playing MMOs. Like it was huge, right? We had ads, we had the whole Mr. T ads for TBC, and it was like a phenomenon. And I don't think it can kind of be repeated because as much as I would love for the reason WoW was popular to be because of like the sweaty aspects of WoW, I feel it's just that it got enough things right at the right timing and there wasn't competition and it just blew up from that.
Yeah, it was a genre-defining game for MMORPGs, just like how Diablo is a genre-defining game for those top-down dungeon crawlers, right? How StarCraft is a genre-defining game for RTSs. And it's like, oh, other games just don't quite get it right. And even if you made an exact copy of it, you'd have to update it for modern times. And the thing is that you'd have to do something completely new that people haven't thought of. But it has to work, and that's the problem with like creating something new right now and trying to make it better than the original. But there's one thing I want to talk about that you hit on was the graph of subscriptions in WoW over time. That graph, I'm always angry when people show it and say like Wrath is the peak, and I'm like, yeah, Wrath was the peak. But if you look at it, Burning Crusade and Vanilla were like the strongest periods of growth. And I'm a heavy believer that Wrath of the Lich King was a plateau, and that you were having the same number of people join and quit the game simultaneously, which was the first time that happened. So if you look at that graph, it's always like a steep, like upward incline for Vanilla because it hit at the right time.
I'll pull it up now.
Yeah,
for people.
Yeah, and then Burning Crusade is just like this smooth slope that goes up over time. And then Wrath of Lich King, it's a plateau. It's a flat line in my eyes, where the same number of people were quitting and joining in that time, and that's the first time that people quitting and joining had been the same, and it had just been more people had been joining than quitting previously. So in my eyes, Wrath of Lich King was still bringing the same number of people into the game, but the number of people quitting and being dissatisfied with the game was larger than ever before. Right? Okay. That's what it means when you look at those types of subscriptions.
But yeah. So I pulled it up, and then you can see after Wrath, it kind of started going down. The question is, a lot of people attribute the decline to the introduction of all of these things, or in particular, Mad Season likes to attribute the decline to the introduction of cash shop, to the introduction of easier dynamics and things. But personally, for me, I look at it and I think it's almost inevitable for all MMOs to decline at one point in time. Especially, I think it's it's the curse of any MMO is that it starts out really simple and it gets more and more and more complicated. And at some point, it's just a numbers game. How many people are starting up versus how many people are quitting? And it's harder and harder to sell it to new people who say, okay,
Mm-hmm.
now not only do you have to catch up on 1 to 60, but now Burning Crusades up, you also have to catch up on all attunements
Yep.
and the extra 10 levels. And then Wrath comes up, oh, you got to catch up on this now as well. And on top of that, all the stuff before that. It's just an inevitable decline. I feel like it's just because you see this graph and it shows the decline in numbers, you can't just say that, oh, it's because of these things. There's some
Yep.
underlying issues with MMOs just as a base.
Yeah, and you brought up a really good point about like people have to catch up, and there's a burden of knowledge when it comes to entry.
Hmm.
It's the same thing that happened in like League of Legends. You have 140 plus champions, and you have to learn what all of them do if you even want to play this damn game. So there's a lot of burden of knowledge for the new player to come in, and it's very overwhelming. And somebody who quit in Wrath, played a little bit of BFA, played a little bit of Kata, played a little bit of BFA, and then played Shadowlands. The thing that is interesting is, as a player who is coming back to an MMORPG, you definitely feel like there's a burden, like a lot of knowledge that you don't have, right?
Hmm.
And it can be really disheartening, and it makes you very not committed to the game, and you can quit very easily. But also on the flip side of that is you have the people who are transferring from one expansion to the next, and all the shit they did before is useless, right? I can tell you, going from original vanilla to BC was shit for me. I remember like banking my misplaced servo arms and being like, these are being beaten by actual blues. And like putting my stuff in the bank and being like, do I DE this? It's not worth anything. Do I just keep it? Like, what do I do with this? It's just taking bank slots. And it's the thing for the developer is you can't reward the people who are coming from Classic into Burning Crusade in a meaningful way where their effort for that year or two is rewarded in a way that they feel is good, because the people who come into Burning Crusade are going to be at a disadvantage if you do that,
Hmm.
right? So like the new players have to feel like they can catch up completely, and the old players have to feel like what they did still matters a little bit, right? And that's the thing that I think is at war with it. That kind of puts the game at war with itself from a designer perspective when you're releasing a new expansion, because I don't know the solution. And I've been on both sides of that, where I come into a game and I'm like, well, if I didn't play the previous expansion, I'm at a disadvantage. So what's the point in playing? And I've been the person who plays the expansion and goes, what was the point of playing these last 2 years if like all my shit's replaced? Like I come in here and it's like, what the
Yeah.
fuck? Like it's literally worth nothing.
Yeah.
So it has to feel like you have to be somebody who like enjoys a new game completely and doesn't like care that you put time into it before. So I don't know what the solution is. I actually have zero clue.
Yeah.
I think for them, I think WoW's solution was achievements, where it's like you have achievements from like, this is when you got this is when you got that. There's achievements you like, can't get anymore type thing. So I actually think that was their solution to it, which isn't a bad one, but not everybody values that type of thing.
But it's one of those things where I mean we're kind of crossing into a lot of the stuff I thought we'd talk about later anyway, with the whole point that there's almost two schools of people, right? There's the people that they want that sweaty WoW experience. They want everyone that comes into WoW Classic, they have to do that same grind because that's the rewarding aspects of things. But at the same time, how do you sell it to new players? The later you go in,
58 boost. No.
Yeah, exactly. It's like why some people are so against the boost, while other people are so for the boost. It's two completely different camps of people, and I feel like there's no solution. Like you said, I don't know what the solution is, because if an MMO ever finds this perfect solution, like they're gonna have created the best MMO of all time, because the subscriber numbers won't go down. Then they're not gonna hit that late game point where the game's so complicated that it's almost impossible to keep your sub numbers up without slowly bleeding people off.
Yeah, and for them that was Wrath, and I don't know. People think like Wrath was the peak, but I just think it was kind of riding BC hype for a long time. At least personally, because I quit in Wrath. But you were touching on something that I thought was really interesting, which was I'm trying to remember exactly what I was going to say about it. It was it's gone. Sorry, ADHD. It's gone. Yeah. It was if people like the thing about 58 boosts that triggers me is I'm like, you're gatekeeping your game if you're against like 58 boosts, because you're forcing these new people to go through all this stuff that's like archaic content at that point, that's old, that may not be relevant. Not everybody's like starting a blood elf or Draenei, right?
Yeah.
um and for me, I'm kind of sitting there going, well, if I'm a new player, I'm going to want the 58 boost. Like, I know some people who are going to come back and play and they don't want to do the 1 to 60 thing. In fact, they started playing in TBC and they like enjoyed that game more. So they want to get to that content as fast as possible. But I'm sitting there going, if you don't have 58 boosts, a lot of people won't join the game to play it because they don't get to the TBC content fast enough. If you do 58 boosts, are the people who are already playing going to quit because there's 58 boosts? Really? I just think it helps population of servers. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think people are going to quit. The people who are against 58 boosts, are you going to fucking quit the game because there's 58 boosts? Really? You
Well,
really
I
gonna
mean, the
quit 'cause
game
there's
only
58
goes until
boosts?
Wrath
I don't think
anyway.
so. I don't think so.
For a lot of people,
I
the
don't think
game they're only thinking about Wrath is the thing, and that's let's be real. They could make a whole bunch of mistakes, and people will still play until Wrath because the populations are big enough that WoW Classic will survive at least until Wrath, regardless of what happens.
Yeah.
And I feel like the big problem a lot of times is just that people are thinking of it from their point of view. They're not really considering the overarching, the entire problem with MMORPGs and the catch up issues, the new people coming in. Everyone just wants WoW Classic the way they themselves want to play. They're not really thinking of anyone else's perspective when they kind of think of the game design issue with all MMOs. Is this issue where you hit that point and then what do you do? How do you get new people to come in?
Yeah, I mean, you plateau and then you got to find new things, right? And I'll say, like, sometimes you don't get it right. Sometimes you fuck up and make Cataclysm, you know. So you're chasing a
Sometimes
ghost
you
of
get that
yourself.
crazy Titan forging system that I tried to do in BFA and then gave up on.
Yeah, I mean, at least you're trying things, right? Like, uh, I'll say it's in a strange way, kind of like being a Twitch streamer. Is you're constantly chasing a ghost of yourself and just trying to do better than yourself the last month. I know like Twitch streamers who had their best part of their career like years ago, and they're still like, this isn't like their all-time sub high or anything like that, or like a game came out and then that's when they hit their really big peak. And everybody's just kind of chasing a ghost of themselves and trying to get back up to that plateau of the sub numbers type thing for both WoW and for people who are on Twitch. So you don't always get it right. Sometimes the stars align and you have like a really good month or really good expansion, and it's impossible to recreate that success. And the only way you'd ever get back to that is not by doing what you did before, but by doing something completely new that nobody's like done before. So yeah, just kind of close out the expansion conversation. Yeah, I'd probably go to Wrath of the Lich King, and then they'll stop. I hope they stop at TBC, but I think they'll go Wrath. So
Oh yeah, I think absolutely to go Wrath. I have friends that for some reason they like Wrath. Maybe they were playing Death Knights, and then they said they'll 100% they'll come back for Wrath, but they're probably done after that. But yeah, I mean, on the whole topic of pre-patch, how much do you think it actually matters from a PvE perspective? Because from my perspective, when I look at pre-patch and all the things they're bringing in, I really don't care that much about PvE anymore, about like raid times and things like that for the speedrunning things. I almost feel like as soon as pre-patch hits, a switch is going to flip in my brain and I'm going to be, oh, nope, this doesn't matter, it's TBC time. TBC time, I don't care about all this other stuff. If it's not prepping me for TBC, I don't care.
See, that's the thing, is I don't think that's going to happen. I think people think that's going to happen, but if pre-patch is even like 2 months or a month and a half, people are legitimately going to try to put up a speedrunning time. They're going to boost their shamans. They're going to boost their paladins. They're going to put them into their raid compositions. And Horde are going to be like, watch us play with South. Watch us play with Kings. Legitimately, I actually think that's what's going to happen, is the Horde are going to try to put up competitive speedrunning times if they're still like around the top Horde guilds. I actually think they would do it, because like paladins, you only need to introduce 3 into your raid. Very, very easy to get in. You get Salve, Kings, and Might / Wisdom with that. Very easy. And in the other side, you're going to want like 5, 6, 7, 8 shamans, depending on how many you're actually going to run. So I think Horde are going to be able to compete. I think they're going to be excited about that. I think they're going to want to put up a good time, and they're going to be like, Alliance, you should still care about this because we're going to like beat your time or your time. I actually think that's what's going to happen. Is people are going to try to force other people to still care about it because they're going to have all these new fun toys that are very easy for the Horde to introduce. Because Horde right now have a chip on their shoulder of like, it's much harder to play Horde raids, right?
Yeah.
Just watch us without the sandbags on, right? Like some Rock Lee type shit where they take off the weights, right? They get paladins in their raid, and then boom. So I think that's what's going to happen. I think people aren't going to care about it anymore. But what can you really do? People are going to like do one of like three things. You're going to grind honor so you can get your Grand Marshal weapons because you don't have weapons right now for some reason. They're either going to prepare, gather mats, do GDKPs for people who still want to throw money at stuff for some reason, which I don't think is really going to be that lucrative. And then you're going to be people who want to like raid really hardcore and put up good times and good parses still. Especially with how people are going to be messing around with TBC talents. Currently, I was talking to my friend who's like much better and like at finding like sims and stuff like that, and actually finding good ones. And he was telling me that mutilate actually sims really well right now in pre-patch with the talents that you have. So I was actually surprised at that, and I was talking about it last time, and he talked to me afterwards, and he's like mutilate actually sims really well right now. And it gives dagger rogues like a way to really compete against sword rogues. Even though they already do, but it's like it's going to give them another extra way to do it. Now, is pre-patch going to be something where they introduce the extended buff slots and debuff slots?
Ooh, that's true. Is that coming in?
Because I can tell you, if there's extra buff slots, there's going to be some warriors that are going to be like, I can use everything, and they're just going to bring everything to raid, right? And then if there's debuff slots, a bunch of warlocks are going to be like Curse of Agony, like corruption. What can I do that? Well, hunters are going to be like Serpent Sting. So I think what it's going to do is it's going to make people sit there and go, damn, this is actually a really good version of Classic, and they're going to want to play that for a little bit because it's going to have all these great things. Like if it has the debuff slots, if it has the buff slots, awesome. Paladins and shamans on both sides, and that's when they're removing batching. So when you PvE, warriors are going to be going fucking bonkers where their executes don't get batched and they lose all their rage at the end of the fight and don't get that extra 5,000 crit at the very end of the fight, or have their first execute batch. So and having played on PTR, I can tell you without batching feels fucking great. It feels really good. Even moving mobs feels a lot better as a tank. Right? Because they don't do that thing where they'll like stand there for a second, you move away from them, and then they're like, oh, I should catch up to you. They actually like follow you the whole way. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be almost, I would say, quote me on this, but don't quote me on this. I think it'll be one of the best times that Classic players will have in Classic is playing the pre-patch.
That's an interesting point. You brought up the clown fiesta feel of pre-patch because it almost feels like no one knows what's going to happen exactly because there's so much stuff is changing. And
let's be real. You're going to be popping off. You're going to be like, look at this mutilate build. Look at this, like this combat talent. This is what you should. Fist weapons are good. Like that type of thing. Like
the Revenge of Seal Fate is coming back.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a good time. It's going to be like it because the game hasn't had anything quote unquote new that's like undiscovered in a long time. Because if you think about it, private servers didn't go to pre-patch talents, right? So it's like this will be even something new for salad bakers and everybody else, where you're having people play Nax with these talents that was only available originally 15 years ago for a few months. I think it was like 2 months or something like that, or even a month and a half. Where you were able to like.
Do you think it's going to have the same weight as far? Do you think that might be an asterisk in the corner for like any speedrun times or things like that because of the complete mayhem that is going to cause as far as guild comes? Because right now the thing about Classic is that it's so practiced, it's so precise. People know like this is the perfect speedrun comp. This is what you need to do in all circumstances. I almost feel like you're gonna go into this and it's just gonna be complete mayhem because there's not gonna be those exact guides or things that everyone has to do, right? It's going to be there's so much experimentation that's gonna happen. In a way, like you said, it's going to be really, really interesting because no one knows what's going to happen almost. It's just going to be complete mayhem.
Nobody knows. And I even see people in the comments going like, well, you won't be able to have all consumes because battle and guardian elixir. And I'm sitting here going, well, flasks actually count as both a battle and guardian elixir. And Flask of the Titans got nerfed to be 500 HP, I think, in BC. So I don't know if they make those changes then, because then I'd be working with less HP and I wouldn't be able to have Mongoose on at the same time. Which as a tank, I'm going like, well, does that nerf my crit enough that now I have to try full prot with a shield in Nax? Like, is that what I'm going to have to do? Is go devastate? Which is possible because you only get 10 more talents after 41, and there isn't really anything for you that you would want that's like deeper than the first few in Fury or Arms. So I'm like, oh god, is that going to be the way that we do things? So it's exciting because it's very undiscovered, and people who like to try things are going to be all over it. They're going to be trying to raid with different builds constantly. So everybody's kind of scrambling to see what's good, and it's going to be really interesting to see. I'm excited for it. So I don't know if
you
it's gonna be
convinced me.
battle
At first, I wasn't
already.
that pumped for it, but listening to you explain it that way, it sounds interesting. I mean, that's almost like the magic I like at the start of every when you join a new MMO and no one knows what's going on. There's that magical feeling because no one knows what's going on. Everything's new, and you're discovering things.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, that's what I love about what I love about speedrunning is there's always new things. This instance has been out forever. It's been out for 15 years. Private servers, all that shit, and there's still things to this day that are being discovered in Nax that people can do and try to increase their time. And that's what I love about speedrunning. It's that feeling of people don't have it exactly right yet, and I don't know if they ever will. With things like when WoW Classic came out and people were like, "Oh, how good is hit rating?" type thing. Being one of the people who like can actually make sims and kind of show people like this is good and this is why it's good. That's a really exciting thing for people who like to arm others with education. So I totally understand that. I love that feeling.
Yeah, I mean, while we're on the speedrun topic, we should go into the speedrun stuff. So Noobs set a whole new record for speedrun. I think it's what 50. Is it 50-53?
Yes,
I believe was the
50-53. 50-53.
So yeah, I thought Zirene in particular was saying that there's some stuff that he thinks that are almost undoable depending on the server that you're on. So I thought we'd cover that. What do you think is actually undoable?
So it's gonna be. I'll just share my screen now so that you guys can see. Let's see, is this gonna work?
Okay,
Perfecto.
Give me a sec, guys. I'm gonna configure this.
That's so I can see still.
Then we go this.
All right.
There we go.
All right, cool. So the thing is they do a lot of things. Like they do some clever things that I really like. At the beginning here, they ended up doing the Gigapull with including the pat that goes underneath the gate. So after they got done with a noob, they run straight out. Excuse me. They run straight out with rocket boots, right? And the gate is already open. And the paladins have already gnomish cloaking deviced through the middle. And they're going to invis pot into the Fairlina pull. So the Fairlina pull is actually already being set up right now because they had two paladins not in a noob. So then they get to run through. Boom, it's already set up. They come in, they do this, they lose people here, it's fine. But that's like tiny stuff that like it's hard to notice if you just watch it. You're just like, oh, they're kind of just they just ran through and the pull setup is just normal. But they're shaving off seconds by doing these tiny things of having a paladin get over there at the very beginning and do the bubble pull to that giga pull spot by going to the other side. It's actually a lot harder than it sounds, and like pulling that extra pack. But then when I was watching this, I was just like, this is the part that freaked me out, was this rogue here on the right that's sprinting, that guy, he just takes off. And I was like, where's he going? And when they come over here and they get to this area, I was like, okay, wait, the door's already open. So that rogue already went by and probably opened the door, vanished. And then when they run through here, they're waiting for a second. I was like, what's going on? Okay. They pull these ghouls. And then for the rest of this run, to Meixna, there's no trash. There's no acolytes. There's no gargoyles. There's no set of acolytes here. They grab these spiders.
Okay, yeah. So for those people that don't know, that there's usually 2 mobs at each of these gateways.
And there's no acolytes here either.
And they're
And
not
then
here.
you see there's the ghosts from the shade, right? So the shade was pulled as well. But there's no acolytes, nothing like that in sight. And the rogue in the top right left the group.
Huh.
So this rogue ran through, grabbed everything, left group, petried in a corner with everything on him pulled off to the side, ghetto hearthed by being kicked out of the instance, gets summoned back, and rejoins the group when Makesna dies and zones in. And he's back with them.
That's insane.
You can't do that shit on Fairlina. If you get fucking summoned in, you're gonna lose your buffs. And the other thing too is I don't know if this guy has prep. Like I don't know if he had prep because what he probably did is he's probably preparation for the entire first part of the instance, and he hearths to wherever Iron Forest Stormwind. He probably runs to the Rogue trainer, respecs and gets summoned, and then puts all his talent points in because he probably needs double sprint to even do that.
That's definitely not doable in FIMO. WCB Horde only will be all over that.
Oh yeah, 100%. And then the other thing on top of it is when they do they do Lotheb. When they do Lotheb, yeah, if you look at like his frames, I don't like his frames, but they're all the way on the left. Somebody left the group. Why did somebody leave the group? And then you're like, wait a second, what's going on here? And then somebody else leaves the group. And then there's a guy hearthing right here. So what they do is they don't log their priests out. They have them smite and do damage, and they have them do one of the first heals. Then they hearth them, and then they summon them back. So that they don't get the refreshed Lotheb debuff. Because every time somebody heals, he refreshes the debuff on all healers that says when you heal, you get, a minute lockout on your heal. So, and that thing takes 2 minutes to fall off. That's the thing that you wait for to fall off at the end of the fight is that debuff that says when you heal, you get this debuff. So they hearth and have the debuff removed from them. Now, if you want to get really fucking sweaty, you hearth to a place where there's 4 warlocks and they just give you enough debuffs to push off your debuff, right? I don't think they do that. I think they just come back after the time and they come in and these guys will have like only a few seconds left on their debuff when they get summoned back. And I think 3 of them log off, or 3 of them get out of the group. It's this priest, and then this guy here who just rejoined the group. But they have a summoning squad there ready to just summon them back. Now, this is something that isn't like too uncommon, but it's like you can't do that on my server. Like you can't do that on my server unless you're raiding like graveyard hours, and especially if you're having somebody hearth, their hearth better be in a good place. So there are people camping in Westfall right now. It is not pretty. Like Westfall, Red Ridge, it gets pretty sweaty with the dispellers right now. So like they do a lot of things here, including like even pulling this and having like a shadow protection potion ahead of time. And they do stuff where they sapper here, and then they have enough sappers for the gigapole and the stables. So what Noobs has done is they've really pushed kind of the limit of what you're able to do with the resources you have, and then found new things like that Petri pool. So it's always surprising to me because I'm just like, that is something that I don't think we would even try. And it only saved them like 10 seconds.
Yeah, it's a pretty minimal thing, but I guess it adds up. You're doing enough of these little mini things.
Yeah. Does it refresh the debuff? The spore refreshes your crit debuff, just to answer the question in chat. Yeah. The spore refreshes the crit debuff, not the debuff of like you can't heal or anything like that. So all the warriors and like, the mages or whoever, they all want to get it, especially the warriors. So they get that back. But the thing about this that like just blows my mind is, like you said, it's only like a 10-second game, because what they did is they did that fancy ass Petri thing, right? They did that fancy pull. But then you're like, wait, there's trash requirements, right? So when you go further into the run, you see they actually pull trash that you normally don't pull. And it actually makes up, because I counted it. I took the end of our Fairlina to the start of our Makesna versus the end of their Fairlina versus the start of their Makesna, and there was a 25-second difference. They made it to Makesna 25 seconds faster than we did, but they lost 15 seconds having to pull these gargoyles after Gothic, pull this shade, pull these acolytes, and then this is 4 horsemen, and then they have to pull the other set of acolytes here because they didn't kill enough acolytes. So they have to kill these acolytes, which takes seconds to get to them. And then later on, before Thaddeus, right here, before Thaddeus, after Gluth, they have to pull the acolytes on both sides of this to meet the trash requirements. So they have to pull these acolytes and stop here. And then they have to go to the other side and pull those acolytes.
Geez, so how much time do they even save with all this?
They save, with the Petri stuff, they saved 10 seconds. That's it. They saved 10 seconds doing that because it took them 15 seconds to kill all this extra trash.
Yeah.
Like I timed it and was like, okay, how fast do we kill Gluth to pull Thaddeus? Okay, how fast did they kill Gluth to pull Thaddeus? And then I added that difference with how much it took us to get from Gothic to 4 horsemen pulling and stuff like that. And I added all those times up, and they lost 15 seconds having to pull all that extra trash, but they gained 25 seconds doing the pre-makes and the trash stuff. So ultimately, it only saved them 10 seconds to do all that fancy shit. And you're at the point now where this is what you have to do for speedrunning, though. And I get it, but it's just absolutely crazy that they do these things just for such a minimal gain. I mean, they're the guys who did the enormous pull that got invalidated by the logs in terms of the time that it took, right? Where people were like, oh, they broke Progress's record. And then it's like, oh, turns out they didn't break it because the timer started when they got in combat, not when they all jumped in. So for me, I'm just like, Noobs, they mean business and they have like a really big like ego about these things. It seems like their pride. They have a lot of pride. Like they really want to be number one, and they're doing all this crazy shit for 10 seconds.
That's so much work for 10 seconds.
I'm sitting here going like, I am never gonna make a rogue ever do that, dude. Even if the guy goes in there and goes, I can do this, I'm just gonna be like, bro, I don't want to pull all that trash later. All this shit can go wrong. Like you see this right here? Like they get lucky / unlucky. This door opens and they have the pat on the other side, right? The pat's right there. And they have to pull that. So it's like, I'm like, if the pat's right in the middle, like what's going to happen? We have to go through it. And then we have to pull these guys on the sides and stuff. I'm like, it's just not worth it. I'd rather just do the makes the trash faster, dude. Like I'd just rather drag that trash. So the Noobs run is really interesting. But if you just skim through the video, it doesn't look like they do anything like crazy or new, right?
Yeah.
Because they're just taking the same normal routes that everybody else is. They're just adding tiny things. Like, and it's very subtle too. Like, I think maybe I can swap to this, right? Let me see. Change windows to this. Okay. So I went in to do what they did with the very first poll, like, because the whole thing where you can actually start your Giga poll with the little skitterers in there. I was like, okay, how do you do that? I was like, okay, so you have to time this patrol. And like, I learned what the patrol does, the one that's star and moving around right there. That one. I learned what that one does. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go now when it starts coming back. I'm going to invis pot to the other side. And you have to invis pot, run through. You have to time this with your raid starting. And you get 1.5 minutes to do this. To actually have this patrol on the other side, the circle. You have 1.5 minutes to have it come to you. And there's this little place you put yourself right here. And you just wait. Right? And you wait for it. The rest of your raid is killing Plague Wing stuff. And you're sitting here waiting for it. So this circle has to come pat by you before the star comes pat by you. And your raid has to come at the same time. So it'll go by. It's not going to pull. And so and if you jump out, you pull other things. So there's a lot of things that people have to do to practice these tiny, tiny things. And if that person like doesn't show up that day, or has something come up, like you can't do it because it's like dependent on that one person who knows how to do it. It's pretty insane to me. And then like the circle comes back, right? And then it gets pulled, right? They get pulled through the gate. You get bubble. I'm not using a speed item here or Petri, but I'm just giving an example. Yeah. You would holy shock this, and then you would grenade the far pack inside right over there as you get to the Petri spot, and then you jump right here. Much easier with a speed item, but very, very doable. And all this does for you is it lets you have 2 paladins stay outside by the gate and then they can open the gate as soon as the noob is done, and they don't have to worry about a skitterer patrol, and they just gnomish cloaking device straight through, and then you can go ahead and use a invis pot and set up the Fairlina pool. This saves you 5 seconds. That's like that's what it does. It saves you 5 seconds of having to wait for the paladin to get to that spot to then go. That's all it is. And it's crazy stuff like that you just keep adding on and on and on over and over again. And I mean that's why they have the world records. They just keep doing tiny things over and over again. And to like segue into the progress stuff, people are kind of back and forth because they want to see what progress is doing, but I actually understand the whole perspective of progress here. So I think we can move on to that now and talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, fair. Okay, so to explain to people what wait, let's go back to this screen.
Yep.
Wait, I gotta hide this. Let's go here. Oh, and I'm giant. Yeah.
Next crazy thing will be all Resuvius trash into sappers. Oh man. There was that legendary like rumor of the onslaught pull where they would the onslaught pull that they were talking about, where it was like you gather all of like the balcony of the Death Knights or something, while you still have the Thaddeus charge, and then you throw holy water. you have a positive pile and a negative pile, and they throw holy water as if like what? It's almost as if like 80 people threw holy water or something like that. I don't remember the numbers, but it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. I can't. Yeah, all that stuff definitely not doable on Firemore. 100%. You're gonna get dispelled. You're gonna get so dispelled.
Oh yeah. Like it's insane to me that they did something like that, and I'm sitting here like there's no way you could ever do that, dude. Like you guys have the on Firemaw, you have Warchief's Blessing Horde only.
Yeah.
On Fairlina, you have the creators of buybuybuffs.com. So which is an actual website, guys, and it had a leaderboard for dispellers. I shit you not.
But okay. So to explain what we're talking about now is for those that don't know, Progress is not sharing or it's not streaming or logging publicly anymore until they have some strategies and things figured out. So I'm just to let everyone know, I am not. If you're looking for an official statement from like the Speedrun team or something like that, I'm not the official statement. I'm not on the Speedrun leadership, or I'm not. I have nothing to do with the Speedrun stuff for them.
Are you even on the Speedrun team?
What? No. So I'm not doing any of the speed. I just don't have time to do that, as well as like the fact that like slots are super limited and all that other stuff as well.
So take your word as law. Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just gonna just share like the endings of like the official public statement so that people know what's going on. Is that Progress is basically not going to do any public logs, any public streams of any speedrun related things until they figure out they basically. So this is a statement is that our lockdown is to facilitate without distracting new strategies. We are testing to secure a sub 47-minute next Ramus run. Those strategies are very difficult to execute and for many different reasons can easily fail. We do not want our tactics planners or streamers distracted or indeed a live execution attempt fail while another guild picks it up and succeeds through simply copying and the stars align with them.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Mm-hmm. So that is the reason why Progress is not doing public logs right now. So this brings about a whole question of things. That there was a whole bunch of people. There was a Reddit thread and all these other things. People saying that Progress has to share the speedruns for the good of the community and such. What are your thoughts as a direct competitor, Zirene? Because you are on the US #1 team.
My thoughts as a direct competitor are it sucks, but I completely understand. Like, I'm not sitting here going, show us the logs, give us the logs, like, give us the streams, Tetsu, where are the streams? Like, I'm just like, Dude, if they put up a 47-minute time, I'm gonna be fucking impressed. Like, if they put up even a sub 50-minute time, I'm gonna be fucking impressed. And for me, that's what it's all about. Like, I don't care about what the community thinks about like my speedrun team or anything like that. Sure, we go like, oh, US number one. At the end of the day, I like playing the game at a high level and just having it be something where 40 people have to all execute. And I'm not here to like chest thump or be like, yeah, we're beating everybody. Like, I don't really give a shit about that. I just want to execute at a high level. And from their perspective, from the leadership of Progress, it's in their best interest to protect Progress, right? And they believe the way they'll do that is by hiding their failures to make sure that people don't get distracted. Like, if something happens where, they wipe on Grobulus or something, oh, here comes a clip of them versus Salad Bakers, like all wiping on Grobulus, like whatever it is, people are going to get memed, right? They'll overlay Tetsu's voice with some clip while he wipes. Like, those types of memes can be a distraction. And if they're just trying to protect their raiders while they try to lock down and like push for this time in a very stressful point of the game for them, where it's basically one of the last fairs they'll get, then I completely understand that. And in the spirit of putting up a good time and being competitive, if they're innovators, I think they have every right to do what they're doing. But everyone else has the exact same right to do that as well, right? If we come up with a great strategy, we don't have to show it. If Noobs comes up with a great strategy, they don't have to show it. But at the same time, I think that Progress kind of owes Noobs a little bit in that sense, where it's like, there's things that these guys have done that people have picked up, that they've been like, oh, this is actually a good strategy. Everybody in the speedrun community has copied each other at some point or taken inspiration from each other at some point. If they want to remove themselves from that, then that's fine. It is going to be a one-way street of information where they'll take everything in and they won't be giving anything. And that obviously puts them at an advantage, right? It obviously puts them at an advantage, which in my opinion is the smart move. Is it a good move for like your streamers and your PR? Only if it works. If it doesn't work, you're going to get memed, right?
Yeah.
If you don't put up the world record time by the time this is done, you're probably going to get memed. But that's just how the community is. So a lot of people are like, oh, you're robbing the speedrun community of like these runs and stuff like that. And I heard somebody say like, this is the time where the speedrun community is actually like really flourishing and like people are talking about speedruns more than ever. Well, you don't have to opt into that. Like, it's completely fine. So from my perspective, being a direct competitor with Progress, I think it's completely fine. I think it's fair play. Like, they're allowed to do that if they want to slap down their time, like their dicks on the table at the end of the fucking expansion, go boom, 47 minutes, baby. Like, then they can completely do that. Like, I think people are like irrationally upset about this and feel like it's unfair. It's not unfair. You're allowed to do the same thing. You just don't want to do the same thing. But I don't know. I don't have a big deal with it personally at all. I've taken inspiration from them, and they're innovators, and I wouldn't want shit stolen from me. So it's
So to clarify as well, some people early on were speculating that Progress is going to drop this, at the last day of Phase 6, they're gonna just upload logs and VODs and just bomb it with information. And by the way, guys, here's our run from last DMF where we actually did this, and now no one can catch up, or no one can now break our record. And just to clarify, again, I'm not the official Progress spokesperson or anything like that. But just to clarify from the public statement that Progress has given, it's not the intention at all to put up like a last day time that no one can beat. It's literally just they want to practice some strategies. They don't want them public until they have the strategies figured out. And then if it succeeds, then they'll change the stance on that. But it's just to lock down the strategies for now, while they're still figuring things out.
I mean, this is like any competitive team ever, legitimately ever, because I even think about like pro League of Legends teams. Like, you're scrimming, your scrims, you're doing in-houses, you're practicing strategies, and if you come up with some like crazy pick, you're not going to show it to people until it's tournament time, right?
Yeah.
You're going to show it on game day. You win the tournament because you figured out Kassadin's broken, and then from there, after the tournament, everybody's playing Kassadin. It's totally fine at that point because you got to reap the benefits of your innovation. Everybody else now gets to do the same thing. And they're just basically afraid of, if they show everyone Kassadin's good right now before the tournament, then everybody's going to pick it up and now they don't have that edge. Totally fine. absolutely completely understandable from a competitive perspective. And all this tells me is that there are people who want to compete, and I don't know. I think the speedrunning community is a little bit too touchy on this for some reason, and feel like they're owed the like watching these speedruns, or that they're owed being able to like take from these guys, which as somebody who's competing directly against them at the top in like top 5, I don't give a shit. Like,
Yeah, honestly, I feel like
doesn't matter to me. If I
the
can't come up with something, that's on me. Like, I don't need to steal from them all the time.
I feel like it might even make things interesting if people don't know what the strategy is, because then you get them on game day, and if other guilds also have secret strategies and they're not sharing. And by the way, this happens a lot all the time. People don't stream PTR. There's a lot of hidden stuff on PTR that all I feel like all speedrunning guilds don't share a lot of the PTR testing and practice things,
Yeah,
because they don't want it
people don't
public
stream
until it's time
PTR.
to do it, right?
People don't stream PTR like at all. People don't stream PTR. We're not allowed to stream comms. I I actually don't know any of the speedrunning guilds that stream their PTR. I actually don't know any.
Yeah, I
And I sit
actually
there
don't
and
know
I'm like,
any. Yeah.
I sit there and I'm like, I'm pretty sure people would be interested in watching this as a content creator, even if I recorded it and uploaded it later. But a lot of it is like legit wiping at the same thing over and over again. Like on PTR, you're not doing the full run 50 minutes over and over and over again. You're going up to the problem spot immediately and doing that over and over again. Like, oh, is it the Fairlena pull? Okay, we're going to the Fairlena pull. We're going to kill a noob. We're going to go to Fairlena pull and we're going to try it. You wipe. You're like, okay, well, all of our sappers didn't go off at once. Doesn't matter that we don't have world buffs. We're going to go back in and we're going to do it again. And then you just keep doing that over and over again. And then you're like, okay, that pull would have worked if we had DMF. Everybody log, put your new character in, and we're going to do this again. And then you just keep doing that over and over and over again. You refine the parts that are problem spots for you. Oh, but like people are embarrassed about wiping, right? It gets them in their own head, especially when it's on a stream. So I don't know. I personally, this is going to sound a little bit like dismissive. I personally don't see why this is an issue. And I think the people who feel like they're entitled to these types of things, just, I don't know why they think they're owed that. Because this is completely allowed and they've just chosen to do this. Because they actually lose something by doing this. They lose publicity. They lose their streamers some money, right? Like, when Tetsu speedruns, that's when he hits his highest views. He hits like 3K plus when he's speedrunning. He's not going to be able to do that, right? And he's opting into this. And so they're losing publicity by doing this, and they're also losing like streamer revenue from somebody like personally who's in it. So from my perspective, this is not just a clear win for them, but it's what the company, quote unquote, Progress, would do to protect their employees, right? It seems like a very standard thing to me.
Yeah. I mean, as far as that goes, from my side of things, on the outside looking at, like, people PM me, but again, guys, stop PMing me asking why Progress isn't sharing logs and speedrunning streams. I have nothing to do with that, so you're not getting anything from me. And even if I did know, I wouldn't tell you guys anyway. So, yeah, you guys can stop PMing me about that. But from a competitive stance, like I feel like a lot of people don't realize a lot of the speedrunners and people who do these things, they're doing it for themselves. They're doing it for the enjoyment of the speedrunning. They're not necessarily doing it for fame or to like show off, like, oh, look at me, I can do this. They're almost competing against themselves in a lot of ways. And going back to my old background, so for people that don't know, I used to be a professional snowboarder back in the day. So I used to do like the jumps and the flips and
That's
all
why
that.
the name. No,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah. And for me, like the top guys and the most competitive guys, they don't care if they lose as much. They care if they don't beat themselves. If they don't put out the run or the tricks or the things that they wanted to do, then they are mad at themselves more so than anything else. There's a famous story for people that know Shaun White. I assume most people know Shaun White. He's a multi-time Olympic gold medalist. In Europe one time, there was a competition where he couldn't stomp the run he wanted, and he got like second. And after the run was actually over, and after the entire contest was over, people are packing up, they're going home. He spent the next hour or two hiking back up the course because there's no speed, there's no chalice at that point. Everyone's gone home, just so that he could put down that run for himself, for his own sake. He wanted to put down the run that he saw in his head. And I feel that's what a lot of speedrunners want. That like it wasn't a big community when all of this started. They're just doing it for the love of the speedrun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah. Like it's the competition. It's the working together. It's all of those things. It's not like, I'll be real with you guys. If I cared about putting up a good time, I wouldn't be playing on the U.S. server. But
Zirene to progress? Question mark?
I'm just kidding. Oh man, I don't know. The ping would be too much for me. But yeah, I just enjoy having to like outdo myself, and I just have this saying where every time I do like a run or put up like a new time or something, I always tell myself never worse than that. So everything from here, never worse than that, right? Every run I do, if I mess up royally, I beat myself up a ton. If I don't beat my previous time, I like sit there and grind and think. Like I've studied this Noobs VOD, I've studied my VOD many times, and it's all about doing better than you had done before. Never worse than that. You put up a time, you're like, okay, from now on, never worse than that. No time that I put up is ever going to be worse than this one now. So it's always about doing better and better. It's not about like throwing a VOD. Like I don't even have my things posted on YouTube. Like I don't post my speedruns on YouTube or anything like that. I just stream it on Twitch, and then I just have it for the viewers there. So I'm not like after any type of fame, notoriety, or anything like that. It's just about the love of the game. So,
but yeah. So it's just, I mean, that's my take on things. Again, guys, stop PMing me, please, about progress. I don't have any official secret leaks or anything like that. They just want to practice strategies, and they don't want to show it until it's ready. Like that's literally just it. There's no conspiracy or anything like that. It's literally just what it is. But while we're on the topic, do you think there should be some rules as far as time frames of things and such? Progress has come out and said that they're not going to be like, they call it bombing by uploading logs at the end and not giving people a chance to counter their times. They're not going to do that. So, but it raises the whole question of is that a thing people are scared of happening, where suddenly people start doing secret runs and then only uploading them on the last day of phase 6, where they're unbeatable? Is that, I don't even know like how doable that is, because how many guilds can even do that, and would they even want to do that?
I mean, I think people are afraid of that with like, what if Noobs has the #1 and they're celebrating? Now Noobs is just kind of sitting there like, what do they have? Like, it does put your competition on edge a little bit. And even if they put up a good run, like what if Noobs does like a sub 50? They're still going to be sitting there going like, well, what has progress done? Like, it does kind of damper any new records, and people are going to be like, you have to wait for the progress logs. So, yeah.
But yeah,
I think people are afraid of that just a little bit. So
I mean, the interesting thing is I feel like most of the outrage is mostly just there's been a lot of trolls. I was looking into all the dramas. There's been a lot of trolling. For the most part, the community is perfectly fine with it. I looked at the Reddit thread. There was 0 upvotes. It was 0 karma. So most of the comments in the thread were just like, I don't care. As long as I get to see the run at some point, they didn't really care.
Yeah, and it's not like if you upload a log on the last day, oh, it's an illegal log. Like, who gives a shit? Like, honestly, why does it matter if they upload it later if it's a world record time? The run happened. Just because they didn't let other people copy them doesn't invalidate the run at all. Just means they kept their strats close to the chest. Like, it does not invalidate it. The run happened, right? And they will show the run later. So, I just think it's silly. The fact that a run is uploaded later does not invalidate the run ever happening and being a world record. So I just think that's silly. People are just trying to make a mountain out of a molehill.
Yeah. So I think that's how it is. But I mean, moving on from the topic, I guess we kind of covered it to a degree. Someone's asking if we ever talk about TBC.
No,
don't worry.
No, it's just a debate.
But yeah, so I mean, we can end on some simpler topics here. Have you noticed, Zirene, the crazy prices of the gold inflation right now? So gold, for people that don't know, gold RMT.
No,
So
because I don't buy gold.
yeah, well, you don't. The people apparently that you boost buy gold. Yeah.
Yeah. It's-
But yeah, the gold prices for RMT. I looked it up just before the show started because again, I don't buy gold either, so I had to look this up. Guys, I don't buy gold. Please don't report me for anything. Actually, if I bought gold, I'd be the worst gold buyer in the world because I'm so poor. So I don't. I'm clearly doing something wrong if I bought gold. But gold prices have gone from, I looked this up, 20 to 25 ish for 1,000 gold, in RMT terms, to something like $35. To almost $40 for 1,000 gold. And in game, all mat prices are just crashing. Lotuses are on white main, at least they have dropped from 200 gold to 80, 70 gold now each. Anything that you can farm in the world has just tanked. My favorite sandworm meat farm has dropped by at least 50% in profit. It almost feels like the last really good efficient way to make gold is now GDKPs. We're back under the GDKPs now, because now it feels like my open world farming time is even worse spent because it's so inefficient now.
Yeah, I think our Nax GDKP had its worst week last week, and it's been running for like 5 weeks, 6 weeks. It had its worst week. I think the split was like 2.4k per person instead of like 4k, 5k. Now, two reasons for that. One, the people that we've been bringing are now decked and need like one piece of gear, so they're waiting for specific drops. So we're going to replace our buyers. The other thing is people just aren't willing to spend as much gold anymore with Classic coming to an end.
Yeah.
So I wonder what's making things tank in price, and it's probably just people are less willing to spend gold right now, and more people are saving.
Yeah.
Because before, when Lotuses, or like before when Nax hit, everything went up in price. Like Mongoose went up drastically. It's because a lot of people were playing the game, and like bots were a big thing too. But most of the time, it was people are willing to spend this money because they're like, it's the end of the game. I have thousands of gold that I've been spending. What have I been saving up for? It's the end of the game. What am I gonna do with this? So people were willing to buy inflated Lotus prices. Now people aren't buying the 120 gold Lotus. Like I see people like literally lowering their prices on Lotus as they slash yell in Stormwind, where they're like 90 gold, and it goes down to like 85 after they've done it for like 15 minutes. Because nobody's buying things at an inflated price anymore, and people are just holding on to their money. So I don't know if GDKPs are still going to be that lucrative in the future, because people are, sure, they're prepping their characters for TBC because they have the money to do so. But I think people are now getting into the spirit of holding all that money for the stuff in TBC, the mats that they're going to need, the flying, all of that. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, I feel all of this is a just big side effect of, as all of this I feel started kicking off as soon as Blizzard said, "Hey guys, no gold cap for TBC, or no changes for gold or any restrictions or anything," and then it was like a flip switch somewhere, and everyone was like, "Okay, we just go to gold. We only care about gold. Who cares about mats now? We're just gonna bring in 20, 30,000 gold into TBC and be prepped." And that's how prep now. It's just gold.
because your Lotus is literally worth nothing in 2 months, 3 months, potentially. And I'm sitting here going, how many Flask of the Titans do I have in my bank right now? It's like I have enough for both of my warriors for the end of the phase. So I potentially never have to buy another Black Lotus in my entire Classic career, right? Like I'm done. I don't need any more. So there's no reason for me to actually buy any. Whereas in the past, there may have been, right? I'm like, oh, that's a cheap Lotus. I should pick that up. Maybe I'll turn that into one that I'll use in like a month. So yeah, a lot of people were stockpiling things, not knowing when something's going to happen. And now it's like, you actually are only going to use 20 more Mongoose in your entire like Classic career, like 5 more Flasks or something. So there is like a hard stop now on how much people need. So the demand has gone down while the supply has stayed the same / gotten larger.
Well, it comes down into this other thing as well, where how important is TBC prep even outside of just having gold? I see. I as a content creator in the who makes BIS lists and things like that, I get so many people asking me, hey Snow, you need to release your phase one like pre-bis list, and this is what we need to do for trade skills, and this is what we need to do for that. And
We don't
a
know.
lot of times I look at it and think, guys, have you seen what's actually in phase one? Like Karazhan and two buses and most when I actually looked at what gear you needed as far as pre-bis goes and such, almost everything is just replaced. By the time you get to hit 70 and you just replace everything, there's maybe only like really small one or two pieces of gear that actually matter in TBC. One of them being Mark of the Champion is just a very good item that you're gonna keep using throughout from time to time because it's just a very good passive trinket. But
Yeah.
for the most part, I almost feel like people are over prepping in a lot of ways because I feel like we're going back to phase one of Classic where people were running 5,000 upper Blackrock runs to get the Delran swords for that like 2 DPS upgrade, and then going into like their first MC and instantly replacing one of them with an actual raid weapon, making all those hours of farming completely pointless. But that's what it feels like when I look at the people who are super prepping for TBC as far as gear goes. I feel like they're over prepping in lows. I feel like as long as you're raiding Nax, you got your tier, you got your Nax bis and such, you're pretty much good to go for the most part. Outside of just having maybe some mats prepared for your trade skills and some gold, I feel like that's as much prep as you need to do for the most part.
Yeah. And what's interesting is like the only thing that I think I'm gonna place any value in right now, for like the future is I think at some point in like I want to say phase 2 or like when Serpentine Cavern and Tempest Keep come out, I'm probably just gonna farm a bunch of elixirs of demon slaying, which
Hmm.
are like the classic mats.
Yeah.
But like there's no reason to farm them now. Right. There's like zero reason to farm Elixir of Demon Slaying right now. Like those ghost mushrooms in Grom's Blood are still going to exist. But the potion is like 5 minutes of 265 attack power against demons, which is very relevant in Black Temple for especially some fights that people want to parse on. And so for me, I'm kind of like, there's very select things that I will place any value on that exist in Classic that I would be like, maybe I'll use this in TBC. And those things, you don't need them till Black Temple. And like you said, Karazhan, Gruul, Magtheridon, that's like the very beginning. And then they have to do Tempest Keep, Serpentine Cavern, and then they have to do Black Temple. And it's like, that's when it becomes relevant. Is most people are thinking about Black Temple already. And that's legit over a year away.
It's so far away. It's so far away. So someone in chat was asking about Badge of the Swarmguard as well, which is an interesting one because
A lot of people are saying that, and I don't know because I had Badge of the Swarmguard back in the day on my Rogue, and I remember it being worse than it is on live.
well, it comes down to the armor values, right? It comes down to how much armor can it shred, and the thing is, even in the best case scenario, I had to look at some sims for Badge of the Swarmguard. Even in like a best case scenario, it does perform well if there's more armor on the mob and in a very short fight. It's one of the best things you can have for like a 30-second fight because that's it just scales really well for that 30 seconds. But there's other trinket alternatives. There's DST. There's other trinkets that are really good in TBC, even in phase 1. So badge isn't even like something that like if I would love a badge before that happens, but if I don't get a badge, I don't really care that much, honestly.
For me, I'm just like, I remember badge not being very good on my Rogue, but if I'm a warrior, I think badge has some value still, especially on trash packs. Like I can even think of like there's a lot of trash packs in Karazhan. Not everything's going to get sundered. Let me tell you straight up. You're going to have less warriors, so not everything's going to get sundered. It's a 10-man as well. So the armor value of those mobs definitely matters because they aren't going to get sundered completely up. So if you're a warrior who wants to play in TBC, having a badge is probably good. There's the concubine packs in Black Temple that aren't going to get sundered. So anything like that where you're going to be hitting cleave the entire time or whirlwind, that's when I think it's worth it. Plus, you can trinket stack with it where you can use any active trinket simultaneously alongside badge. It doesn't count towards an offensive trinket. So you can use it with Earth Strike and stuff. So if you're able to stack that with something for a very quick pack, it's going to be like one of your highest damage trash trinkets in the game. for very select packs. You'll slap it on, use it for that next pack, and then you'll get it off, and then you'll just use it whenever there's like a big AoE pack. But you're going to have to find a way to put it on 30 seconds beforehand, which is the problem with it, right?
Yeah.
Because that means you're probably doing a trash pack before that maybe that isn't the best trinket for. But there are some straightaways. So I can see people mapping it out. I'm kind of thinking like what it looks like as you're going through Black Temple up to the place where Mother is.
I mean, the other thing is good luck getting a badge now. They're so hard to get right now. It feels like it's the one item in AQ everyone wants right now is badge.
Yeah.
When they go, that's why they come to a GDKB is to try to buy a badge.
Yeah, that and Goa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, at least that's how I feel. Is that I feel like most people are over prepping. They're just over worried. They're so hyped for TBC that they want stuff to do. Really, there's not really a huge amount of stuff you have to do to prep for TBC besides just having some gold.
It's kind of like I said, like as a creator of a game, you want to make it so that new people can come in and not feel like they're behind, but you also want to make the people who have played your game and transferred over to this expansion feel like what they did was worth it. And what you're rewarded with is just better gear while you level. That's it. When you get to like the end, there's probably like 2 pieces in your Karazhan pre-bis that will be from Nax. And that's like your shield, Face of Death or something like that. It's probably like a KT weapon or it's probably like THC or something like that. And that's it. Like everything else you're going to end up replacing. So, and I very, very distinctly remember that and being very sad about it. It made me want to quit the game on my rogue back in the day when I, had to bank a bunch of things. And I was like, this is literally better. It's one of those things where you're fighting the stats of a weapon versus like the feeling of having to earn that other weapon instead of just handing a quest. So, and that's probably worse back in the day because less people were clearing Nax, right? We're like one of the only guilds in the world who can actually like get through it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that this feeling where people want to end each phase with full bis nowadays, it is not a thing that was around back in the day. Full bis was not a thing, but now everyone almost expects like, okay, end of the phase, I want to be in my full bis.
Yep, I remember when you walked around the server with a Thunder Fury, it was like really cool. And if you had Conqueror shoulders, people were like, holy shit, you could kill Viscidus or Huhuron. Like people were like downright like impressed. And it's one of those things where like you'd stand in Ironforge because nobody stood in Stormwind because people didn't care about world buffs back then. You'd stand in Ironforge and you could see the people inspecting you, like walking up and like trying to make it so that they don't notice you. Somebody accidentally opens trade with you and then runs away because they misclicked inspect. There's a bunch of shit like that, but it was like almost nobody had the gear that we have today. Like it's very, very, very rare. Very few guilds actually cleared Nax.
Yeah. Oh man, I miss the almost naive appeal of old WoW. I remember I had the very first Night Elf mount on BlackRock server back in the day. And I did what you do when you get the mount. You go to Ironforge and you just sit there mounted so that people can look at your glorious mount achievement. And
you had the original like Night Elf mount.
Yeah, like the level, just the level 40 one. Because I was the highest. 40. Yeah, I was just the highest level at the time, and I was the first one to get it. So I went to Ironforge and stood there on the mount as you do. And it kind of the first message I got was some guy inspected me and said I was a loser.
He wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong. That's secretly to this day. Good lord. Now I remember like because when you say the first Night Elf mount, I was like, there was a thing where like I think the original like level 60 Night Elf mount didn't look different than the 40 version. There's like a special. Yeah, there's like a very like select few people in the world who have the original like non-saddled version of the 60% or the 100% mount.
It's the same for Undead mount as well. Was it the Undead mount?
Yeah,
I think it was the Undead mount.
Unarmored 60 mounts. Yeah.
They or rather, Undead was the one race that had a fancy fast speed mount, and then the other people just had like different colors and things like that. It was just looked really scuffed for everyone else.
Yeah, damn.
But yeah,
That sucks to be them, man.
yeah, the good old days. But I mean, now they're collector's editions, right? Now people want those because
Yeah.
it's so hard to find people who got the early 60 mounts before they patched them.
Oh yeah, it's very very hard.
But
Oh
yeah,
man.
I think we covered a lot of stuff today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good talk. There's still some other stuff, but we can cover that next time. We
Yeah,
got a
yeah.
good 2-hour podcast in. Thank you guys, of course, for tuning in. Episode 3. I will catch you guys next time.